So, now we come to Alien Resurrection, which is currently playing around here. It's at a nice big theater at the airport right now with great sound and great screen. Nice and big, but you know, Uncle Larry wishes he could say that helped it out. But Uncle Larry went into Alien Resurrection with high hopes because he'd seen the trailer for it. And Uncle Larry's got to tell you, that was one of the best trailers Uncle Larry ever saw. In fact, he thought it might have been the best trailer of all time if he hadn't then seen the trailer to Dark City, which is just incredible. You know, boys and girls, you should go to the movies just to see that trailer. Uncle Larry knows the movie's probably going to be a piece of crap, but that trailer for Dark City is probably the best coming attraction as far as, you know, visual excitement goes that Uncle Larry has ever seen. Anyways, we're digressing a bit, aren't we? Alien Resurrection, directed by Jean-Pierre Jeunet, the guy who co-wrote and co-directed one of the top 10 movies of the 90s, Delicatessen, a dark, gothic French sci-fi which Uncle Larry highly recommends. If you boys and girls haven't seen Delicatessen, go out and rent it immediately. It is one of the top 10 movies of the 90s. So Uncle Larry understandably had high hopes. Unfortunately, they were dashed, boys and girls. Uncle Larry cannot recommend Alien Resurrection. And here's why. For starters, the plot is totally and completely absurd. Nothing makes sense. There is no logical continuity at all, boys and girls. It's obviously a case of the writer, you know, thinking up a bunch of great scenes and then having to somehow mush them all together into a movie. So nothing makes sense. I mean, not only is there no intellectual satisfaction in the plot, it will actively insult your intelligence. The people that wrote this think you're a bunch of idiots, boys and girls. Okay? Now, understandably, the art direction is great. You know, Jeunet really has an eye for the great visual, and the art direction is great. But the dialogue, oh my God, boys and girls, this movie has the worst dialogue of any movie this year, and possibly the decade. The only thing Uncle Larry can think is, Jean-Pierre Jeunet is a French guy, and he does not speak English. He had to use a translator to direct this flick. So Uncle Larry thinks he just didn't realize how putrid the dialogue was. I mean, there are actually lines in this movie that made Uncle Larry writhe with pain in his seat. So you got no plot and horrible dialogue. What's left? Well, just on the level of a horror movie, do you care whether the characters are endangered or not? You know, is it scary? Well, boys and girls, it's not. And the reason is that all the characters in this movie, with the exception of Ripley, are so incredibly, obstinately, obnoxiously stupid that Uncle Larry actually wanted them to die. He was cheering for the aliens to come and kill these jerks because they were such total idiots, and honestly, they did not deserve to live. Now, Sigourney Weaver does do a good performance as Ripley, but that's wiped out by the performance of Winona Ryder, who is quite possibly the worst actress of all time. I gotta tell you, boys and girls, can you think of anybody else who's worse? Uncle Larry can. And she just drags this movie right down to the toilet. She's one of the things, you know. So all in all, boys and girls, Uncle Larry has to say, he really can't recommend Alien Resurrection. In fact, Uncle Larry hated this movie. All right? He really hated it, boys and girls. Not as much as he hated Aliens 3, but not much better. This movie, the people who made this movie think you're a bunch of idiots who'll just go see anything they throw at you. So Uncle Larry says, do not go see this movie, even if someone offers to pay your way. Okay? Just go and see Starship Troopers again, because that is exactly how this type of movie should be done. Sure, it's mindless, but damn is it entertaining. And that concludes Uncle Larry's Movie Review Corner for this week. And now, let's pay a visit to Uncle Larry's Movie Review Corner. This week, Dark City. Now, the boys and girls who have been regular viewers of Uncle Larry's Clubhouse for a while will remember that Uncle Larry told them that the coming attractions for Dark City was probably the most visually arresting trailer he had ever seen, and that probably the movie would lack substance, but that it would be great just to look at. And in fact, that is the case. Don't go to Dark City to see any kind of gripping characterizations or plot lines or anything like that. It's all style and no substance, but for $2.50 on a bargain day, it's definitely worth it just to look at the pretty pictures. It is completely and totally implausible as well as utterly derivative, but you will see some stuff that you haven't seen before. The movie stars Rufus Sewell, who was the hunk from Cold Comfort Farm, although Uncle Larry doubts that any of the boys and girls have seen that movie, as well as Jennifer Connelly, who was in The Rocketeer, who's got a great set of rockets herself, and Kiefer Sutherland and William Hurt, all of them sleepwalking through a totally absurd script by Alex Proyas, the guy who did The Crow. And again, it is completely visually arresting, but completely unoriginal. Uncle Larry would be willing to bet his entire back issue collection of Heavy Metal magazine that if you went through that collection, you would find every single plot line and idea in the movie. And before you boys and girls take up that bet, remember, Alex Proyas is the guy who did The Crow, a comic book-based movie, so Uncle Larry feels pretty sure that he's totally dog-eared his copies of Heavy Metal. He's taken a little bit here, a little bit there, and sort of mushed it all together into a visual extravaganza, which is utterly meaningless. But like Starship Troopers, if you treat it as just a sort of absurd, dark dream, you will be able to wring some enjoyment out of it. In fact, what Uncle Larry recommends is that you go to it on a 250 Tuesday with a friend who's seen a lot of movies and play Spot the Influence. For instance, all the bad guys, they all wear, their costumes are a total rip from the Pinhead in Hellraiser. I mean, it's exactly the same costume, and they're all wearing it. You know, I guess they couldn't come up with anything better on such short notice. Aside from the Hellraiser debt, there are obvious homages or rip-offs, if you will, to Terry Gilliam's Brazil, David Lynch's Dune, Philippe Junot's City of Lost Children, as well as Interview with a Vampire, Barton Fink, The Naked Lunch, just to name a few. Tim Burton's Batman. I mean, you boys and girls will have a blast playing Where Did He Rip That Off From? So it's a qualified recommendation. Uncle Larry would not even pay $4 to see this movie, but he says for $2.50 it's worth the price of admission. Also, while he was there, Uncle Larry managed to catch the trailers for Lost in Space, The Avengers, and Armageddon. Armageddon is trying so hard to be Independence Day that it gave Uncle Larry an actual physical pain in his ass. Whereas Lost in Space looks like to be another great style over substance flick in the tradition of Starship Troopers and Dark City, so you can't go wrong there. And as for The Avengers, it looks like it's just trying to be another GoldenEye, but take it from Uncle Larry, it'll be worth the price of admission just to see Uma Thurman in that leather cat suit. Hoo-ho-ho, boys and girls, if you know what I'm saying, and I think you do. And that concludes this week's Movie Review Corner.